Welcome to the 1 to 1 Million podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. This week, we're going to be diving into the markets. What's going on with the markets? Why are we not running up in price like the 4-year cycle pointed to? Every 4-year cycle, late December, early January, we have this massive rally in crypto. What's the deal? Why is that not happening? What does that mean for the January dip? What does that mean for a February alt season? What does that mean for the cycle as a whole? We're going to be diving into all those things and a ton more. I'm going to be doing some updates on various tokens like Akash, Research Coin, Index, Cow, PERC, a bunch of tokens that I've talked about in the past. I'm going to be diving in and just doing some updates on those tokens as well. This is going to be a jam-packed episode. Let's dive in. It's great to be back. Last week, I took a little bit of a break, a little bit of a hiatus for Christmas to spend time with the family, do all that fun stuff. It was already a pretty packed week, so I just didn't want to add to it, recording a podcast and all of that. So took a little bit of a break. I am back, and I'm ready to jump into everything that has been happening. Obviously, current market state, okay? We went all the way up to like $107,000, $108,000 per Bitcoin. And then we collapsed back down with just like a brutal drawdown where a lot of alts went down like 30%. Bitcoin, I think at its lowest went down like 17%. And ever since, we just kind of been stuck going sideways. Bitcoin has been bouncing around between 93, 94,000. ETH's been bouncing around. And the alts actually have been bouncing around, holding pretty solid as well. And per the usual, with this bearish drawdown, we've had a lot of bearish takes come out of the woodwork on X and on YouTube, where people are saying this is the cycle top. Like that was it. 107 was the top. It's over. Other people are saying that it's not quite over yet. We're going to kind of maybe drift up a little bit more, maybe into like February, but then it's over. And this has kind of become almost consensus within on X and with a lot of people that this is gonna be a short cycle and it's really just done. Like that was it. Get ready to pack up because this is gonna be the shortest, most lamest, stupidest cycle in all of history. And I think that is maybe the most incredibly stupid take of all time. And I have no idea what these people are talking about or what they are thinking when they're making these just wildly stupid predictions. And I don't use that word lightly, stupid. I genuinely think these takes are just wild. Like I don't understand where people are getting this kind of nonsense that they're coming up with in their head. The only thing I can think of is that people are looking back at, when Bitcoin hits all-time high and they're like measuring, because people do that, right? Like everyone looks for patterns. And one of the patterns is like, the number of days from Bitcoin's all-time high to like the top. And there's like, I don't follow that one as much myself, but that's the only one I can think of because Bitcoin hit an early all-time high. So now they're predicting maybe an early cycle end because of that, which just seems like, they're just noise, right? They're just looking at this pattern maybe that's played out in the past. And they're saying, it's going to repeat this time without even taking into consideration the fact that we had this ETF run up that just blew off the top. And we had a ton of inflation, to be honest. So if you track, we talked about this, I talked about this in the pod a while ago. If you track inflation, in inflation adjusted terms, Bitcoin did not break its all-time high in early 2024. It broke it just recently. And so maybe it's inflation, maybe it's ETF pushing it up, which is kind of an unprecedented thing. Either way, it feels like you kind of got to give that one a pass. Like, yeah, we hit the all-time high early, but that doesn't mean it's going to track to the exact pattern we've seen in the last cycles. Cycles are a loose framework. They're not an exact science. I give the quote often, history doesn't often repeat, but it rhymes. That's the exact kind of feel for it. It's like it rhymes to past cycles. It's not the exact same. And you can't take any one single metric and kind of pluck it out and be like, oh my gosh, the cycle's about to end because of this one single metric. You got to look at the whole comprehensive picture. And the whole comprehensive picture is insanely bullish. I'm about to do a YouTube video on this, so I don't want to kind of spoil it, but be on the lookout for that because I'm going to go through and make my case as to why I am insane bullish as to what's coming next. I think people have lost their minds, like legitimately. Some of these people are smart. That's why I'm saying that they've lost their minds because they're not stupid people. I think they have lost their minds. They're like literally out of their minds to say that the cycle is over. It makes zero sense. Okay, so I'm insane bullish. I don't think the cycle is over. And you know what? You might just be saying, well, Jesse, you're always insane bullish. And that's because, I've been insane bullish this whole cycle because that's been the right move to make, okay? Since late 2022, being insane bullish was the right default attitude to have, right? I don't do like short-term trades. I don't try to trade, like, oh, it's going to dip here. It's going to not dip here. It's going to break out here. Because I'm just not great at that. And I think that's a lot harder. I play a whole cycle. So I'm like, okay, when's the bottom? I'm going to get in then. When's the top? I'm going to sell then. Okay, I really just focus on those two things. And I'm trying to be an expert in those two things. When's the bottom? When's the top? That seems a lot easier to me than like, when's the bottom for this month and this day and this week and all that kind of stuff. That makes me want to lose my mind because it's just so much harder to predict. The more you zoom out, the easier it is to predict things. For example, if I were to, fast forward 1 month from today, at this exact time, it'd be really, really difficult for me to pinpoint at this exact time what I would be doing right now, 1 month from now. But if I were to kind of zoom out, I could give you a really easy general overview of my day a month from now. That's like really easy for me to do. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna eat breakfast, I'm gonna work out. I'll actually work out before I eat breakfast. I'll get ready, I'll take a shower, I'll start work, I'll answer some emails, I'll jump into the OC and like respond to a bunch of stuff. You get the idea. Like it's a lot easier to, in general, predict general macro trends than it is to predict very specific like market moves of like when it's going to go up, when it's going to go down. That's why I don't like to time those really specific things. That's kind of my strategy. That's my style. But taking it all the way back, my point is, yes, I have been very bullish since late 2022 after the collapse of FTX. But for my comprehensive style of playing a cycle from start to end, that has made sense, and that has been directionally the correct mode to be in. And I'm still in that mode. At one point, I will turn bearish. You guys will probably hate me and stop listening to this podcast when that happens, because in general, at the point when I turn bearish, it'll be peak bullishness, and it just won't make sense to you. That's just kind of how it is, right? When I turned bullish, it was peak fear, and everyone thought I was insane for investing into crypto. When I turn bearish, it's going to be peak greed, and everyone's going to think I'm insane for selling because they're going to think it's way too early. So that's how it'll feel. And does it feel like peak greed to you right now? Does it feel like, oh my gosh, everyone and their mom's in crypto, we just run up so hard. This has been such an insane rally. Does it feel anything like 2021 or 2017? Like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel anything like those cycles felt. It feels like overall, most people receive that as a very reasonable take. Oh yeah, the cycle could be ending early. The cycle could be over now. That seems very reasonable. That's not how people behave when we're at a cycle top. They are like they will attack. Like last time at cycle top, when I was like, hey, I'm selling stuff, people were literally sending me death threats. I'm not even kidding. They were like threatening my family, threatening my kids. It was actually really bad. So when it's like the cycle top and people are telling you, like when I'm saying to sell, if I'm not getting death threats, okay, then it's not cycle top. It's not cycle top. Again, look out for that YouTube video. It's gonna be coming out in like the next couple weeks. But I'm sort of spoiling the video in a sense, because the question in the video is the bull market over? And the answer is no, the bull market's not over, in my opinion. And I can say that with absolute certainty, because the reason we have these like nuclear crypto winners has to do with the fact that we have this huge run up with all this leverage that builds up in the system before that, right? So we run up like crazy. It gets to this like peak frothy mania. People are like literally rabid at the mouth for crypto. It's like, crypto's so great. And then, the leverage gets too unstable. A small like drawdown causes the whole house of cards to collapse. I like to give the example of like a Jenga tower, and like you remove all the different Jenga pieces to like stack it up really, really high, and it gets more and more unstable. Okay, and at a certain point, that's leverage. At a certain point, it gets so high that you remove one more piece and the whole thing collapses. That's literally how a crypto bull market works. And I can tell you right now, the Jenga tower is looking pretty dang stable. Not a lot of pieces have been removed. We just had a big liquidation event. We handled it fine. Prices are holding fine. Alts are holding like super fine. So we haven't built up the leverage we need to go into a nuclear crypto winter. So what does this mean? What does this mean for a January dip? What does this mean for a February alt season? What does this mean for a 2025 bull run? Well, I've given you my like solid rock hard conviction, and that is we are not at cycle top. We are not going to have a massive nuclear winter like we've seen in the past at this moment. There's just no indication that that's possible. And in fact, we have the exact opposite, where it's like everything is flashing green. Every possible indicator is so bullish, I can't even comprehend it. Like it's never been this in my since being in the market in 2017, we've never had a more bullish setup than we have right now. Okay, so it's like the exact opposite of what everyone's saying. That's why I think they're just so stark crazy. So that's my strong conviction. Now, what does that mean for January dip and the February alt season? Well, these are like lower, way more flexible convictions. The January dip, I have no idea. At this point, it could go any way. It's like a toss-up, right? We could still have a January dip. We could have a muted January dip, or we could have no January dip at all. It could have been that the current dip we're going through is kind of like a replacement of the January dip. It could be that because we didn't have a massive run-up in late December, early January, we now don't have a massive dip in January. It could be that because we didn't have a massive run-up, it's just like a muted dip, and that dip is still going to happen. It's just going to be more muted. I don't know how that's going to play out. That's like now a toss-up because the pattern has broken in that area. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't even try to time that dip in general. The whole point of me telling you that we're going to have this massive drawdown dip is because so people wouldn't sell, right? Because we have these in a bull market, we'll have these huge drawdowns. And this scares people, shakes them out, and they sell literally at the bottom of the dip right before it reverses and goes like way higher. Okay, if you've seen the charts from the cycles, like these dips like feel amazingly horrible when they're happening. But if you look on the chart, they're like a tiny little blip after like skyrockets, right? It skyrockets right after. So the whole point was just telling you like, hey, don't sell these dips because it skyrockets higher after. That was the whole point. So it doesn't really matter. If we have it in January, we have it in February, that we already had it in December, however you want to position that part, I'm not trying to time it in any weird way, so it's not fully relevant other than like just hold on and for like your mental stability. Now, February having an alt season also is a very flexible thing. I still think we're going to have an alt season in February. We've had an epic run up in Bitcoin. We've had like an okay run up in ETH. And I think if we had a little bit more traction, a little bit more momentum going in there, we'll see that rotation into alts still in February. I think that's still on the table. It's still in play. And it's still kind of like, it's a little bit better than 50-50 odds, right? Like let's say 60-40 odds that we have that all season in February still. I'll say 70-30 odds, 70-30, 70 that we do, 30 that we don't. And the reason I'll say 70-30 is because seasonally, crypto is exceptionally well from the period of like October to like March, April-ish. Okay, so like this season, crypto tends to do exceptionally well. Besides that, like that January drawdown, January dip that we sometimes see. So I still lean towards us having like somewhat of an alt season. You know, is it alt season like bull market alt season, or is it like alt season kind of like what we saw early in 2024? I guess that would be last year now, early 2024 last year. Early 2023, that kind of thing. I don't know, but we'll have some sort of like alt rotation. And to answer the question, are we still going to see a bull run in 2025? I think that also is something that is possibly flexible. At least I feel like I have to remain flexible to that because I don't want to get caught off guard if something is slightly different this cycle than is anticipated. And one of those things would be like, what if we had for the first time ever, a 5-year cycle or something like that? And the reason I say that I don't care and it doesn't fully matter is because there's really two things that you're caring about in a crypto cycle. You want to get out before that you have this like nuclear collapse or like alts draw down 90%, and you want to be able to ride up that parabolic run up. And then now the timing on exactly when that happens doesn't fully matter. If you're in the market, right? If you're in the market, you're allocated in the market, it doesn't matter. And so what you're looking at is between, let's say hypothetically, and my default view is still that we actually do have a 2025 bull run. But hypothetically, let's say that this cycle was different. We have a run up late 2025 that's more on track with the 4-year cycle, and then a crazy run up in 2026. And let's say the reasoning for this is that the drawdown was so insane. So many more people were involved in crypto in 2021. And the FTX collapse and all that left such a mark on people's subconscious that they really struggled to get back into crypto. And then like Gary Gensler and all this kind of stuff, they did the damage. So people are still mentally recovering, and it just takes an extra year this time for people to like mentally get to the place where they're ready to really jump back into the market. Like psychology plays a huge role in that. So let's say that's a possibility, right? Hypothetically, still not my default case. If that was the case, then what would 2025 look like? My base case for what 2025 would look like would be it'd be really similar to 2023 and 2024. So it's like we in general go up. We in general make a pretty decent amount of money, and I would expect it's just more of the same. So 2025 would be more like would be similar to 2023 and 2024. So it's still a really good year, still a lot of money made. It's just not a bull run year. It's just not like bull money. Like for normal people, they would actually look at 2023 and 2024 and say, this has been a bull run. We look at how much money you've made. Look at like how high the price has gone up. But when I say it's not bull money, it's not like a bull run. That's because in crypto, we're used to these insane run ups. Like it's would be called a melt up in the traditional markets. It's when the markets get frothy. It's when you have a mania. It's when things disconnect from reality. We saw that a little bit in meme coins. We've seen that a couple times with meme coins where things just disconnect from reality. Imagine that, but for the wider crypto market, and it's just way more insane. That's what a bull run feels like in crypto. And so that's what we're looking for. The run up we have to have the epic collapse, which we haven't had yet. So I think that there's a slim chance that we could see that maybe as an outcome in 2026 based on like people being too scarred or, whatever. But that's not my default view. My default view is still that we have a 2025 bull run, that 2025 ends up being, how the cycle plays out, because that's every indicator so far still shows that that's the case. And we'd have to see some strong evidence indicating that that's not the case this time around. Okay, so to summarize, so it's really, really clear. My base case, 70% chance, is that we still see some sort of alt season in February, late January, February, and it's still pretty crazy. Whether it's a bull run alt season or just kind of like a 2023, 2024 style alt season remains to be seen. I still, as a base case, believe we're going to see a 2025 bull run cycle. I would put that as, again, 70 to 80% chance that we see that. But I think there is this fringe scenario where it could happen in 2026, maybe because people were emotionally scarred by 2021. A lot more people got involved. A lot more people got hurt from things like FTX, et cetera. And maybe it takes an extra year for them to mentally recover. I don't think that's the case, but I want to be open to it, because the worst case scenario in that the way that plays out would just be that 2025 is another year like 2023 and 2024. We make a ton of money, and then we make a ridiculous amount of money in 2026. I want to be open to that possibility if that's the case. But all indicators right now point towards a 2025 bull run. That's what the indicators are saying. That's what the layout says right now. But I'm open to being flexible if things change, because as a trader, you must always be flexible. As new information comes in, you got to be willing to assess that and just look at it, honestly, and be like, okay, the information saying something different than I want it to say. Now I got to go with that information. And the last thing is that the market's like a Jenga tower. And the reason it collapses into the nuclear winter is because it gets too unstable. You remove too many of the bricks to make it higher and higher, pump up the markets. And then, somebody removes a brick and the whole thing collapses. We don't have that right now. The Jenga tower is really stable. We just had a massive drawdown, not massive, but like 70% drawdown in Bitcoin. Alts went down 30%. Everything is held up fine. It's been relatively stable. We flushed a lot of that leverage out of the system, and we're looking pretty healthy. So that's not a huge threat at the moment. And I know some of you guys would rather me be like certain about things, right? Like, this is guaranteed. This is blah, 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 blah. And I'm certain about the things that I feel really high confidence in. Like, I'm certain about certain things that I've just said and outlined. But other things I'm more flexible on. I'm not certain on those things. And that's how you become a good trader. You do not lock in to just one vision and outcome. You have to be open to multiple visions and outcomes of like ways things could go. And you got to look at that spectrum of outcomes and say, how many of those outcomes do I win, and how many of those outcomes do I lose? And it's not like a scary situation right now. It's like most of these outcomes I'm going to win it. It's like a fringe, like World War III, Black Swan kind of outcome where I end up not doing as well. And those things are by definition hard to predict. And, like you also get hit walking on the sidewalk, like a car could swerve and hit you, or a meteor could come out of space and hit you. Like there's always weird Black Swan things that could like cause, risk to your life and your money and all that kind of stuff. And those are just things you by nature just kind of have to ignore and not worry about, because you can't predict them, and you got to keep on living life. You can't live in a little bubble. Now, I want to address this thing I've been seeing circulating around in X with M2 money supply chart. It's showing that like global liquidity is dipping. And so people are like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's going to draw down like 40% based on this math and blah, 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 blah. And a couple different things about that. First off, if you go back on the chart with global M2, Bitcoin and M2 are relatively correlated. You can see that, like, they're not perfectly correlated, but they are relatively correlated. And I'll get into why that is in a second. Two, when you have a drawdown in M2 historically on that chart, and Bitcoin has a drawdown, it's not in exact percentage terms like the same thing. Like you could have a 30% drawdown in M2 or whatever, and that doesn't mean you're gonna have a 30% or the exact relative size in Bitcoin's drawdown. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, now Bitcoin had a 1% dip relative to that. So it's not always one for one correlated in that exact same way. But also, one thing that most people don't seem to understand is this works in reverse. Like the correlation between the markets in M2 also works in reverse. For example, yes, if global liquidity goes up like abundantly, that often pours over into the markets and causes the markets to go up. Like if there's abundant liquidity to go around, it finds its way to the markets and pumps up the markets. And if there's a massive drawdown in M2, that tends to find its way into the markets, where all this M2 like leaving the supply does find its way to like pull liquidity out of the markets. But in the same way, if the markets are going up, like if people are bullish about the markets and they're excited, they're pouring money into it, that leads to credit creation, right? Like people take out credit card loans, maybe they mortgage their house, maybe they're taking on leverage. And when you use credit to create leverage, that's a form of money that creates liquidity. So the very act of markets going up actually causes global liquidity to go up as well, because with the markets going up, with leverage creation, you're creating liquidity. And the same thing works in reverse. When markets are going down and you're liquidating positions, you're like removing liquidity from the system, it causes global liquidity to go down. So they're correlated both ways. It's not just a one-way thing. They're correlated both ways. Like the markets going up can cause liquidity to be created. That can cause global liquidity to go up. And that's one thing that people miss when it comes to that. And it's an important thing that like, it doesn't just matter. Like global liquidity is not the end all be all for like, are the markets going to go up or are the markets going to go down? Sentiment is, are people bullish? Are people excited about this? Because if they're excited, if they're bullish, if they think it's going to go up, they will bring liquidity. For one, they'll direct the liquidity they have at that, and crypto's still really small, so it's not like it takes that much liquidity. But for two, they will create the liquidity needed to pump up those markets via credit, leverage, etc. So people that don't understand it like to fearmonger on that without understanding that like it works both ways. All right, let's jump into some of these coins. We're going to start with Research Coin, just pulling it up on the screen to take a look. Research Coin has been on an absolute tear right now. It's sitting at $1.18, which that is insane to me because I've been like hounding people on Research Coin for forever. At its low, it was at 13 cents. You could have bought in 13 cents. And it's just been sitting down there like super, super cheap. Recently, it was at 20 cents before this run up. Right about when I made a video. I made a video in here, and you could have gotten it for 20 cents. People don't understand this thing. Like you want to be early if you want to win, right? Like if you want to win, you got to position early in something that will take off, not after something has already taken off. And people couldn't wrap their heads around it. They're like, "It's not popular. How's it going to take off?" And I'm like, "What? Like this is how you win. Like you get in early before it takes off, not after it's popular." Okay. With some exceptions, like you can go into a popular category like AI and find a token that's not yet popular within that category. But yeah, DSI has pumped off like crazy. It's seen insane growth, and Research Coin has seen insane growth. And I think it's going way higher. It's currently sitting at 112 million market cap. I think this thing goes past $1 billion, like bare minimum in a bull market in an alt season. I think this goes past 1 billion. I think it could go past 10 billion. I think it's still 100x from here, in my opinion. I think that's still possible. Maybe that's a fringe outcome, but I think that's still possible. So I'm really bullish on Research Coin. They're working on some AI stuff, which really bullish around that, right? Like that's you want to tie into the AI narrative, and they're doing like AI peer review and all this kind of stuff with their platform. So insanely bullish with Research Coin. Even at this market cap, I think it is insanely undervalued. I wouldn't be surprised, within the next couple months to see it like go much, much higher from here. After that, we're going to take a look at UNA. UNA has been on an absolute tear as well. There's a lot of people confused about the market cap of UNA. And this is like a common thing in crypto where like CoinMarketCap will have one market cap, CoinGecko will have a market cap, DexScreener will have a different market cap. The correct market cap for UNA, I've talked to the team, I asked them about this, is on CoinMarketCap. So that's $18.25 million in market cap today. And consider when with the OC, we got into UNA at $1.5 million in market cap. So it has been on an absolute run up. And even recently, it just almost hit 8 cents, or no, it peaked down at 8 cents. And I think it is still insane early for UNA. UNA is within the crypto gaming sector, and crypto gaming is not hot right now. It's like DeSci was recently, where not a lot of people are paying attention to it. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Like people hate crypto gaming. They think it is like hated and ignored. And if something's hidden and ignored, that means it could be a massive opportunity. I don't think anything has been priced in the crypto gaming sector. I'm insane bullish on crypto gaming going into 2025. There's a ton of amazing games, but I've talked about before that just from in general wealth effect, crypto gaming assets will go up, which will lead to more players, which will lead to a crypto gaming narrative. That's just like how it will play out. I have a very deep conviction on this one. If I'm wrong about this one, I'm going to have to question my reality. That's how deep my conviction is that crypto gaming goes up. Una is just prime, super good narrative. Their branding's on. You just look at that token. I just look at like their logo and their name, Una, and like their little cool little dragon logo, and I'm like, man, this is a token. People, this is like a cult. This is gonna have a cult around it. Like, I like this token. Okay, so Una. Oh, we just hit 8 cents again. We just hit 8 cents again. Oh. Sorry, I'm getting weird. You know what? I'm really pumped on Una. I really am. They have an AI game coming out next year. An AI game. I love that. That ties them into the AI narrative as well. And that's just insanely bullish. They have a couple other games coming out. A lot of stuff that's going right for Una right now. So again, just really, really bullish on Una and what's coming. And I don't think I think it's still like insanely early days for Una. Switching it up to Cow Protocol. Cow Protocol has also been doing insanely good. They got listed on Binance. This saw a massive run up. I've been talking about Cow for a while because they're just a really insanely useful platform. I use them all the time. Like if I'm ever doing a swap on ETH, on Arbitrum or on Base, I'm doing that swap on Cow Protocol because they're the best. Okay, they get me the absolute cheapest prices. I've saved like $18,000 using Cow Protocol. It's crazy. Okay, and you could have gotten it at 6 cents or 5 cents actually. You could have gotten it at 5 cents. Today we're sitting at 91 cents. So we've had an insane run up in Cow Protocol. I've been pouring money into this thing for forever, and it's just we're only sitting at 268 million market cap. And like the reason Cow Protocol is so amazing because it uses something called intent-based batch auctions, and it's like a new way of doing swaps that like we've never done in the past. And now they have their whole AMM. They're like on so many fronts competing with Uniswap and out competing them, out innovating them, because Uniswap's just basically copy, like all their feature sets are like just a copy of what Cow Protocol's already done. And that's what makes me so bullish on Cow Protocol and so excited that maybe we hit 10 billion, 20 billion like Uniswap did last cycle with Cow Protocol as they continue to expand out to more and more chains. And I swear, once you get hooked on like the Cow Protocol, like it's hard for you to use any other DEX because it's just you always know you're getting the cheapest price and you always know you're getting like the best execution, and that's what makes them good. So yeah, they're doing really great. I'm really bullish, and I think they're still insanely undervalued at $268 million in market cap. Let's take a look at SFG, SoulForge Fusion. There we go. SoulForge is sitting at 6.6 million market cap. And man, if you look at the chart, it's just like the most beautiful thing. It just like goes, it's just up into the right. It's just like almost like a little perfect slant up into the right. Looks amazing. I wish, actually I can share my screen. One second, I'm gonna share my screen. For those who are just listening, you won't be able to see this, but again, you're gonna see a chart that is just perfectly up into the right. It is just a beautiful, beautiful chart. We're sitting at $1.60, 6.6 million market cap. Huge fully diluted value, but they're burning. So they heard feedback from the community on like, hey, we don't want the rest of these airdrop tokens airdropped. We want you to burn them. And so they're burning those airdrop tokens. The community fund, which is a huge portion of this, the community can vote to burn those, a good portion of those as well. And they've committed to a really, really, really conservative release and emission schedule. And as you can see, like their emissions are not affecting this price. They're doing a pretty good job on it. So I think 6.6 million, like where can we see SoulForge Fusion? Well, we saw Gods Unchained. It's like 170 million market cap. So I think that's one marker. Echelon Prime, almost $1 billion market cap. That's another marker. I think we see this thing go a lot higher and do really well going into an alt season. So that's got me really, really excited about it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, go on to the next one, which is Akash. Akash as well has been doing really, really good. If you look at the chart, it's basically kind of like sideways. Okay, so we really peaked early last year at $6.18. We had some exchange listings and stuff like that. Since then, the highest we've gotten is $4.61. But Akash, like the metrics on the back end, if you follow what they've been doing, they keep incorporating more open source AI models. able to use their GPU. Their metrics on the back end are just like continually going up as more and more machine learning companies, AI researchers, platforms, etc., plug into Akash's permissionless compute and are using it for various things. So that's what gets me really excited about Akash. Think of it as like the NVIDIA of crypto. Think of it as like an internet of compute, permissionless compute. It is just something that I'm really excited about going into the bull run. And currently sitting at 841 million in market cap. So a 10x from here would be $8 billion in market cap. That seems totally doable by Akash. 100x would be 80 billion. That seems a little bit harder, a little bit on the crazier end. But if we had a frothy alt season, I think, especially with them kind of plugging into the AI narrative, a little bit of the NVIDIA kind of a success, I think that's something that's possible on the fringe. Really quick, let me just stop because I probably should say this earlier. As always, none of this is investment advice. And obviously, I own all of these tokens. Every single one of these tokens I'm talking about, I own them. I have a bag of them. I'm invested in these things because I'm bullish about them. I believe in them. And I've held these things, most of these things, for a really long time, actually. After Akash, we're going to take a look at Pol. Pol is also looking pretty good. It had a decent run up going into this alt season. But if you actually zoom out to like the 1 year chart, that does not look as good. So we peaked at like $1.27. And we went all the way down to like 29 cents. And then, with the market turning around, Pol turned around a little bit too. But still, it's kind of just underperformed a lot of things. We're currently sitting at $4 billion in market cap. For comparison, Solana hit over 100 billion a cycle. So we're sitting pretty low. And I think it's dropped to, it's number 34 on the rankings. It used to be a lot higher than that. So Polygon has not been doing good. Pol token has not been doing good. Not a lot of great performance. And that's led to even more lack of performance because like losers in crypto tend to lose, winners tend to continue winning. Not like as an absolute rule, okay, because things definitely turn around. But like things that have momentum continue to carry momentum in that direction for definitely a season. Now, my thesis around Polygon has always been that around their tech, right? Their tech, their token rebrand, and alt season. So like those three things. So far, their token rebrand was just not the best timing there. Crypto was not doing good. It didn't really carry a lot of momentum with them. They had like a little bit of momentum going, and then it just kind of died off. Their tech, the ag layer, is amazing. It genuinely has a ton of potential, and I think they could develop a really strong narrative around it, but it has to be live. It has to be in use. People have to be using it, and it has to be gaining traction and good metrics for that to take off as a narrative. And the other thing is alt season. Okay, we just saw like Dino coins like ADA and XRP and like 2017 coins take off. Maybe the next batch is like 2021 popular coins like Polygon or what we see really gain some traction. I think that's possible. Overall, I'm just kind of wait and see mode. Let's see what happens with Polygon. I have all my Pol staked. I'm staking, hoping to earn various airdrops. They've kind of like teased some airdrops on the site. If you like go to their validator set, airdrops have not been insanely hot. They haven't been like super big, but we did just have the Hyperliquid airdrop, which was insanely amazing for those who are participating. So we'll see kind of how it plays out. I'm still bullish on Polygon's tech and that will find a way into price. But it could be later than sooner, right? That could be something we see late cycle, not early cycle, as the egg layer progresses and as more momentum builds up around that ecosystem. Next up is Index, which I haven't talked about in a little bit. And it's not because I don't love Index. I've just been busy. Index is also super, super tiny, sitting at $22 million in market cap. And the idea is index funds on chain, like building out index funds. They have a DPI, which is like their DeFi Pulse Index, and a couple other indexes. And my bull case around Index has been with their PRTs. Okay, so their PRT, the product revenue tokens, are this really cool kind of paradigm shift where basically it's a mechanism for them to launch all these new tokens that can accrue value, kind of like almost like a meme coin launchpad in some ways, where people are speculating on the future value of indexes. They're buying into these things and they're accruing these tokens. I just think it's a really cool mechanism that could accrue a lot of value to the index token, but they haven't really leaned into it a ton. Instead, they've leaned heavily into their leverage suite. So their leverage suite historically for index has been their biggest moneymaker. It's like all their revenue that they actually use to like keep the lights on comes from their leverage suite. People love leverage. They like leveraging up things. And so it's like tokenized leverage. So instead of like taking your ETH and like depositing it in Aave and like taking out leverage that way, you could just buy like a 2x, 3x, 5x ETH token, or 2x, 3x, 5x Bitcoin token, or whatever. I don't know what their exact tokens are. That allows you to get exposure to, say, Bitcoin, but at like 5x or 2x the leverage. I know they for sure have 2x products, so I'll stick with those. So, like basically if Bitcoin went from 100K to 150K, and you had a 2x Bitcoin index token, well, it'd be the equivalent of if it went from 100K to 200K. So you'd get like double the gains anyone else would get. That's kind of the concept behind it. People love it. They've been, again, big money makers for index. And so they've leaned heavily into that, and they're expanding those, like that product set to try to bring in more revenue, more attention, that kind of things, which could be tokenized leverage. I think is a really interesting concept and could be a really good play. You got to consider index is only sitting at $22 million in market cap. And so there's just in general, like if any narrative catches around them, there's a lot of potential for growth. They're also one of the few tokens that are like they're already listed on Coinbase. They got listed on Coinbase during last cycle, like late last cycle at some point. And so it's really easy for like retail and people to buy into index today. So even a little bit of a spark, even a little bit of a narrative or run up, people could easily pile money into it. Still really bullish, just keeping an eye on what they're doing, how they're developing. Would really like to see them develop more PRT tokens, but also really excited to see kind of what they're doing with this leverage suite and how they continue to expand out their leverage products. Finally, I want to talk about Perion's PERC token. This one is unnaturally small, sitting at $2.4 million in market cap. And it has had some interesting price history, okay? So we had over this last year, this huge epic run up in early, during kind of like the alt season, early 2024. And then recently a huge epic run up with off the grid. And that had to do with the fact that PERC had bought in early like nodes from off the grid. They like do early stage investments into different crypto gaming studios, products, etc. Either getting equity if it's like a gaming studio or early token allocations, early access deals that other people haven't gotten the same exposure to. And the idea is, hey, if you hold this token, you can also get any upside that comes from those gaming tokens, like doing well, right? On top of that, they have like multiple products of their own they're launching around wallets and platforms and all kinds of stuff they're going on. But my original thesis was based around their treasury of gaming tokens. And I think we're going to have a huge gaming rotation. I think those games are going to, at least some of those games are going to do really, really well. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of upside potential for something like PERC, sitting at only $2.4 million in market cap. It is tiny. And that might not be an accurate market cap now that I'm looking at it. Because as I remember, I sometimes get in trouble with PERC because I'll say that, and then like CoinGecko and stuff will have a different one. So I'm going to go to Dex Screener and look. Dex Screener has, 3.3 million in market cap. So it's like $2 to $3 million in market cap, so somewhere in there. And over the past like month, Perion hasn't done very well. It's gone from 33 cents all the way down to 18 cents. And I would attribute that to, like, for one, it had just an insane run up around off the grid where it went from, 25 cents to basically almost $1. And then, that collapse kind of led to a weakness in price where it collapsed down maybe a little lower than it should have. Similar to what we just talked about earlier, which is when something has like this epic frothy run up, that can lead to like a nuclear collapse at the other side. But in general, I don't think this is just going to perform well until you A, have either an alt season, or B, have a crypto gaming rotation. You need those two things for something like Perion's PERC token to do well. But if they do well, that what you're really betting on with something like Perion PERC is that it's so small that the upside potential is unhinged. It could also go to zero. Like, it's so small, it could really underperform. So that's like the bet you're making is like, okay, I could lose money, this could underperform. But if it performs, it could go up so much that I could make a fortune. So it's kind of like it's an asymmetrical bet where you're like, okay, maybe it goes to zero, or maybe I make a fortune kind of thing. And that's how I look at PERC. I'm looking at for an alt season, I'm looking for a gaming rotation. Without those things, I do not see it really taking off anytime soon, or getting very much momentum. But with those things, especially with those combined, Perion's PERC token could do extremely, extremely well and go a lot higher from here, given how just ridiculously tiny it is today. Again, one more time, none of this has been investment advice. I hold all of those tokens. And, if I'm giving like, oh, I think this go higher, this, like, I remember I can't predict the future. Like, I don't know that these things will go higher. This is why it's really important to have position sizing where, even for me, if I'm like insanely bullish on a token, I'll never allocate more than 5% of my portfolio to that token. And oftentimes, if it's really risky, I'll do like 0.5% or 0.3% or 1%, like really small amounts, because like you just never know. Like even I could actually pick a really good, fundamentally a really good token that I'm like, this is an amazing token, and I'm right. Like I did all my research and I didn't miss anything, and it fundamentally is like perfect. It is literally an amazingly perfect token, and it could still fail. Like it could still fail, it could still collapse. There's things that could still go wrong. And I always compare this to a hand of poker where you could have the perfect starting hand, double aces, just perfect. And you could still lose that hand of poker. Just because you have a perfect starting hand doesn't mean you'll win, because there's inherently information you cannot know and do not know because you can't predict the future. And that's how it is with any crypto project. Any crypto project can go to zero. I'm not going to be right about every crypto project. I'm not going to pick like everything I do is winners. I would be the single greatest investor on the planet if everything I talked about won. Some of these things will lose epically. The goal is to win more than you lose and to win a lot bigger than you lose. And that's historically, I've been pretty good at that. But I'm trying to emphasize you need to manage your risk well. You need to have strong position sizes, and you need to do your own research. Genuinely, you got to build your own conviction. Otherwise, you'll have like price dip or this or that, and you'll end up selling at the wrong time or buying at the wrong time. And it's going to screw you up. So you got to build your own conviction, build your own strategy and all that kind of stuff. That's how you ultimately win when it comes to investing in crypto. All right, guys, this has been a great episode, and I will catch you guys next week.